So once you've got the hang of simple mountains, there's two different ways that you can take them up a notch. One's to give them some very faint texture, and the other is to give them a rough edge so that they look like they're covered with trees. Adding texture to simple mountains does make them look a little closer, so it's not something you have to do. One easy way to add a little bit of texture is that when you're blending the darker top color into the lighter mist color, use brush strokes that follow the direction of the mountain. Those brush strokes will be a little bit visible and they'll create a slight sense of texture. The other way you do it is by adding a little bit of texture, just like you do for complex mountains. Make a color that's just one shade brighter than your simple mountain. And then on the side of the mountain that's being hit by the light, you're just going to kind of randomly scratch in some brush strokes that follow the angle of the mountain. This is mostly dry brushing, so you're not using a lot of paint, and make sure you leave a lot of gaps so the original color shows through. You want this to be really, really subtle, especially at the bottom of the mountain. You barely want to see it there. Don't forget to think about that zigzag line in the middle of the mountain. You only want to put this highlight on the side facing the light. Just leave the shadow side as the base color. The other thing you can do is add a little bit of roughness to the top edge of your simple mountains. That'll make it look like they're covered with trees. Again, this will make the mountains look a little bit closer, so you don't have to do this, but it can add a little bit of interesting detail. So first, let's start with a small round brush. You're going to use the same color that you use for the top of your simple mountains, and you're just going to, with a fair amount of paint on the brush, just tap and pull down along the top edge. Make sure you've got some variety in your spacing and your height. You don't want these to look like fence posts. And they're really, really far away, so no one tree should stand up very much higher than the rest. Alright, the second brush I'm going to show you is a small flat brush, and this is perfect for making distant pine trees. First, pull the paint flat to get a nice chiseled edge, and then you're just going to turn it sideways and tap. It's not so much a pull, but a tap along the top edge of your simple mountains. Make sure you've got enough paint to cover up the edge of the mountain, and make sure that only a little bit of the brush is sticking up above the edge. Remember, these are very distant, tiny treetops. The last thing to check is just make sure that those trees don't stand out from the rest of the mountain and to make it really obvious that you painted them in afterwards. So sometimes that means going down to the bottom of the trees and just pulling some texture straight down to kind of blend those brush strokes into the rest of the mountain.